Hello and welcome back to the Irish Mammy channel. It's been a while since I've done a video. We're near the end of the season and we are getting another heat wave, so I decided I might still be able to squeeze in a late season garden tour. So you'll have seen the clips of me harvesting my beetroot out of this bed over here. It's empty now and waiting to get something sown in it. I'm probably going to put spinach in it, but I do still have another empty bed as well, which I'm contemplating what I can sow. Probably winter leaves is going to be the most practical option at this stage. So I'm going to take you through bed by bed and just do a quick tour of what we have going on at the minute. So if you remember, we planted this flower bed up earlier in the year, and I thought it would be a good idea to plant plenty of squash or pumpkins to help keep down the weeds. So definitely the squash and pumpkins have taken off really well, but it hasn't succeeded in keeping down the weeds. So you can see there's lots of thistles going on there, peeping up through the squash foliage. But there is also plenty of squash growing as well, which I'm delighted to see. None of them are terribly big, but they'll be used for decorative purposes if nothing else. So it'd be difficult to see through the foliage what actual fruit I have growing, but this is one of them. I think this must be an uchiki-curry squash, just a small edible one. I do also have a crown prince in at the back there. You can just see it peeping through there, or Turk's turban maybe it is actually. As for the rest, they're very difficult to see. I do have butternut squash down here. I see another one. They're actually all starting to ripen now, so I'm seeing them better than I had been seeing them. I think that's probably uchiki-curry as well. Some dead foliage in there as well. I suppose it's starting to die off now at this time of year. And down this end is just completely taken over between the squash, weeds, nettles and nasturtium coming through as well. So I'm looking forward to getting this cleared out. I know it looks very abundant, but it's also very wild looking, and you can see here it's overgrowing the path as well, so it's getting to be a bit of a nuisance. And even this arch is getting taken over by it a bit as well. So my two beds either side of the arch here, there is one the other side, and you can't actually see it. There's blueberries growing in there. You'll be able to see it better from the back when I go in. But I have been getting a great harvest of blueberries this year. And you can see I have more ready to pick, and I only picked the day before yesterday. Plenty more there yet to be picked. My poor rose doesn't look like it's doing very well. You can see it hasn't really filled out very much. I'm contemplating changing it altogether. I can't seem to get the pruning right, or else it's not happy in the soil, which is another possibility. Because I have blueberries in here, I top this up with ericaceous compost and an acidic soil feed as well to keep my blueberries happy. So obviously it's working well for the blueberries, but it may be that that doesn't work well for my actual climbing roses. And then of course we've had such extreme weather that hasn't helped either. So pretty much the month of July and August was just soaking wet, and now we're back to a heat wave again. So we went from heat wave in June, completely wet July and August, and now back to a heat wave in September. So all the extremes of temperature aren't helping the roses. Now, so this bed is turnips or Swedes, I always get mixed up. At the front here I have fennel, which I actually harvested this fennel already, and to harvest it I had just cut it off at the root, and it has now started to shoot up more roots again. So I don't know how that's going to go, but I've left them because I'm not going to replace it with anything else at this stage. So I've left it to see how it goes. It may be that it'll bolt very quickly, but if not, we'll have fennel well into the autumn. And I'm not sure if you can get a good view in there. Of my swede. They have swollen up nicely. That's probably a better view there. I did go through and thin out. There was some smaller ones and I just pulled them out all together, and that has allowed these other ones to swell up even more. So I'm very happy with this crop, but I'm now waiting on a spell of cold weather to help sweeten them up. So on this other bed here, you can see the back of that little bed at the front. More blueberries, of course they're growing in here into this bed. Not as prolific on this side for some reason, but nonetheless I'm getting some harvest. And in this bed I have replanted it with more swede, and I see weeds coming up in it too. Now I do have to go through and thin out these swede seeds. I was trying to get them, let them get well established before I thin them out, just because I'm conscious of the slugs attacking them when I do thin them out. So this is the strawberry bed that I was threatening to rip out, and I haven't ripped it out, but it didn't produce very much strawberries this year, and like I said, it was in its 4th year. So I'm probably going to tear that out now and top up that bed in the autumn time. I've lots of seed trays lying here of things that just didn't get planted out, and it's a pity really, but I just didn't get around to it with the weather being so bad, and not having a lot of space, to be honest too. I mean, I'm very guilty of sowing seeds like mad without planning the space where they're going to go. Now these were going to be for cut flowers. They are Cosmos and Orlea, which is a beautiful flower. But my cut flower area was actually filled with what I did put in it, and if I get a chance I will get up and show you that cut flower area as well. That there in those trays there is spring onions that I've just let grow on for far too long, but I still think I'll be able to put them in the polytunnel now when I get it cleared out. And over here was the remains of my sweet corn, which I think was only one plant that I didn't get planted. And I think this is actually broccoli, which I had no room for it and didn't really want to look after it over the summer either, because between butterflies and everything else it was going to get destroyed. And in this tray here, this was only sown a few weeks ago. I wonder did I put the date on it? I actually did. So I sowed these the 7th of August, and these are my overwintering onions. So they're Senchu Yellow, a Japanese overwintering variety, and they've actually come on really well this year. Last year I sowed them far too early. I was sowing them in July last year. They didn't do well. They pretty much fizzled up on me, and we had a very hot summer last summer, and they just didn't do well at all. But when I took them out to the cool last autumn, they proceeded to do well after that. So this year I waited and sowed them later, and didn't leave them in the greenhouse for as long either. So they're nice and healthy looking. And it was the same seed as I sowed last year, so I didn't expect it to germinate very well. So I sowed every little seed that I had left, and of course they've all germinated. So now I've probably far too many. I'm sure I'll find a home for them somewhere. So this opposite bed here is flowers. Since I hadn't got all my flowers in my cut flower area, I decided to sow more here when I emptied this out now. I think this was spinach. Yes, I had spinach and radish in this bed. So I pulled them out. They had all bolted and gone to seed. Anyway, I've sown mostly zinnia, and you can see actually some of the spinach that had gone to seed is now starting to grow. So it had thrown off seeds and now it's growing. Typical. This is Orlea grandiflora, the same as we've just seen in the tray there, and the rest are all zinnias as far as I can remember. Yeah, the rest are all zinnias. Now I did have to keep these with slug pellets on them. For some reason the slugs were well, of course it was such wet weather at the time when I sowed them. The slugs were just chomping away at everything on me, so I had kept lots of organic slug pellets on them just to protect them. But I see I'm still missing some, and I don't think it was a germination problem. I think it was slugs. I can see gaps in the rows there. My peas are still going. God love them. I don't know how they are. I should have really cleared these out, but I did take another harvest off them after I emptied the bed, and this one as well. Actually, I can harvest more of these now. They're ready for harvest. But this hot, dry weather will not do them any good at all. So I'll probably be clearing them out now in the next few days. And this is the bed I cleared the beetroot from. Like I said, spinach is the plan for that one. And down here is my carrots. And I'm trying to remember when I sowed these. I don't know, did I write? I did, the 7th of August as well. So they're in exactly a month. This is the 7th of September when I'm filming this. So I'm a little bit more hopeful that I might get a harvest of carrots for the winter. So they're in 4 weeks, and I'd reckon we have another 4 to 6 weeks at least of a moderate growing season. So 10, 12 weeks. They're an early variety as well, so they should be well developed, certainly by the end of October. Here are my onions. They're in a sorry looking state, but usually I wait for onions to start to fall over before I harvest, but some of these have bolted. Now I'd say about 3 or 4. You can see that big hard stalk there. But I think it is time to harvest them, but it was so wet. And even yesterday we had a huge thunderstorm yesterday and a deluge of rain, even though we've been having this heat wave for almost a week now. So, well, some of them had a little bit of help falling over now. That was helped along with a ball. But I think I'll pull them out and let them dry over the next day or two on the bed here, and just get them finalised. And again, I'll have another empty bed that honestly I'm not sure what I'm going to plant in. I do need to do winter leaves, oriental leaves of some sort, but I have another empty bed over here I can do that in. So if you have any suggestions as to what I can sow in zone 8 outside that won't be annihilated by pests, put them down below in the comments. This is my brassica bed, so I've had cabbage in this, and I think I had cauliflower in it as well, and I left my red cabbages to grow on and mature, and I don't know, can you see the size of that head of cabbage? But it's huge, and I'm really proud of this big huge head of red cabbage. So I'm saving this. Now this hot weather might not help them. They may end up bursting on me, so I may have to get them harvested very soon. But I've been saving them for doing roast cabbage. I also want to make a red cabbage coleslaw, so we'll see. Another huge big one in there. I'm not sure if you can see it very clearly through the net. Probably not. But trust me when I say they're nice big heads. So this is the other empty bed that I have. Again, I have seedlings here that never got planted out. But what did I clear out of this bed? Carrots. Yes, I had a crop of carrots in this bed. And they were lovely. I think they were Chantenay or something. They were a nice short carrot, but fairly thick. And they were actually really nice. And I used a good bit of them up in my canning sessions, because I made loads of tomato soup this year with my tomatoes, which of course contains carrots as well. So a good bit of the carrots were used up that way, and then the rest were blanched and frozen because in the warmer summer weather they weren't going to store very well in the shed. So spring onions still going on here, but they can be cleared out. And the bed just cleared up and tidied up a little bit, and then sow my winter greens in there. So this is the last outdoor raised bed. I have leeks here. Again, they've got a bit of help from a ball. They're a bit in a bit of disarray. But they'll stay on. I'll leave them in there until next month anyway, probably, to just grow on as big as possible. And I have more seedlings to plant out in the polytunnel as well. So hoping to have extra polytunnel space this winter, and I'm hoping to get most of my crops planted up there in the polytunnel. In the centre of that bed then was celery leaf, which I actually haven't used any of. So it's celery that grows like in a more of a herb form, and I'm hoping to be able to use it in soups and stews over the winter, but I'm just not entirely sure how well it lasts. But it is perennial as far as I know, so we'll see how it gets through the winter, how it survives through the winter. It may be just a case of chopping it back in early spring and letting it grow back again then. And behind that then is parsnips, which have great foliage growth on them, but I'll be waiting again till they get some cold weather and some frost to check out the roots of those and see what they're like. Down here then I have some extra plants that I've done nothing with, flowers and a beautiful eucalyptus tree that was gifted to me for my birthday. Haven't decided where I'm planting that yet, but it's a nice hardy eucalyptus. So I'm excited to see that growing up well and being able to use those foliage elements in Christmas arrangements, but it'll be a few years before that happens. And down here I just have some herbs that were left over from our local DIY plant sale in the summer as well. So I have 2 curly parsley, I have oregano, thyme, and then I have a nice little thalictrum plant as well. I think it's a thalictrum anyway. So yeah, still stuff to be planted out. And the greenhouse then, still plenty of production going on in the greenhouse. So growth kind of stalled for a wee while in the greenhouse because we had actually, while it was wet, it was cool enough as well. Well, cool for the greenhouse plants, I should say. It was rather cool. So my cucumbers are in full production now again. Plenty of cucumbers growing. And I've only harvested from this, I think yesterday or maybe the day before. There's another one there, and I see another one down here as well somewhere. There, it's not just fully ready, and 2 more growing in there. Definitely no shortage of cucumbers, which is great in this hot weather. You may have seen I posted on my Instagram lately. So I posted on my Instagram lately, look at the state of me, you can see how warm it is now in the greenhouse. I'm just absolutely loving a salad. It's nothing special, but it's just tomatoes and cucumber and onion chopped into bite-sized pieces, and they're I suppose you could say marinated with red wine vinegar and a little splash of olive oil and plenty of salt, and the salt of course brings out the juices from the tomatoes and the cucumbers, and it creates a kind of a brine and just macerates into the salad, and it's absolutely gorgeous when it's been refrigerated for a few hours. Lovely and cooling and refreshing in these hot temperatures, and it's lovely to have the majority of that grown in your own garden. Obviously don't do red wine vinegar, but all the rest of the ingredients are grown here. And you could of course throw in a crushed up clove of garlic, or even half a clove maybe would be plenty, since it will be raw. But yeah, I'm absolutely loving that, and all the cucumbers. Loads of pickles made again this year, and I wouldn't mind. I have no shortage of pickles. I still have an overload of pickles from last year, but it's hard to waste the produce at the same time. So I did do, I suppose it's a different kind of a pickle. It's just with no sugar. All the ones that I done last year all have sugar in them, which is lovely of course. But trying to cut down a wee bit on the sugar, so I done some this year with no sugar at all, so we'll see how they go. yeah, and the tomatoes, this lovely hot weather is starting to get them ripening up again. As you can see, there's plenty of fruit on the branches, but it was just getting it hard to ripen, so it's taken off now with this hot spell of weather. Nice sunny hot weather, that's what it's needed. Now the plants themselves, they're suffering a little bit with, well, it's probably blight, can't just tell for sure, but certainly fungal issues of some kind. But I do find this time of year tomatoes just kind of succumb to some sort of fungal issue, fusarium wilt, all those kind of things. They succumb to them in the end. And of course it didn't help matters that I had let these side shoots get out of control as well. Maybe twice during the season I had let that happen. So I did cut them off at the top to try and curtail their growth so that they would push all their energy into the fruit that they have growing on the stems and into ripening those. So it has helped, but these are the Auriga variety, well, we see there, that are new to me this year. They're a nice tasty tomato, like a nice size, and some of them do grow bigger than this as well, but I'm not sure if I could say that I grow them again. I mean, they're nice and sweet. I don't know, I just find they seem to vary a lot in size, and that could be just as much gardener error as anything else. But there are a lot of different sized fruit on the plant, you know, and they're ripening at varying sizes. So like, there's a fairly big one, and it's not fully ripe yet. And then, well, let me see, we'll zoom out a bit. And there's another one that's fully ripe, but it's tiny. So, I suppose you could say a similar taste to the Sun Golds, but maybe not quite as, no, not as full of flavour as the Sun Gold, but almost similar to it. These Marmons are hard to beat, but I've had a lot of issues with, you know, the skins bursting on them in certain areas, and they're still hard to beat though. Even with the few drawbacks to them, they're still nice when they're really red and really ripe. There's nothing like them. My yellow pear tomato, you can see it back there, it done absolutely terrible. But again, I think the problem with it was the fact that I let all the side shoots just get away, and then of course it was producing on all the side shoots that I then proceeded to cut off. So I think I didn't help it very much that way. And this one here is Gardener's Delight. So there's tons, absolutely tons of fruit still on that to ripen. But it's a hardy enough plant, a hardy enough tomato variety. Look, you're still even, I could probably go through and cut off those flowers at this stage, because it's asking a bit much now for it to be producing more fruit this time of year. Probably as well to cut off the flowers that's on it now and just let them concentrate on ripening what is on it. But yeah, there is still tons of fruit on that plant. But what I was saying was they're fairly hardy plants, so they will go on till probably October if I let them, if I have the patience to let them go on till October. Over here there's a rogue chard. I planted chard here last winter and it didn't do anything. The slugs of course ate it off at the nub, and then it proceeded to tick off then in late spring, so I hadn't the heart to do anything else with it. You can also see down here, and I forgot to mention these, some cabbage plants. Now they're looking a bit neglected, as in they're in need of a feed, but I'm just holding out to get them into the polytunnel. So I'm hoping they'll take off fairly well when I get the space in the polytunnel for them. And then in here in the propagator, and now the propagator's not on, I want to add, definitely no need for heat, supplemental heat at this time of year. So it's probably mostly full of dead and dying stuff at the minute, but I have my leeks in there. They're huge, they're giant winter leeks. And again, they're going to the polytunnel. I have an extra celery leaf plant in there that I didn't do anything with. I might donate that to somebody. And then I have basil in there that I didn't get a chance to plant either. So I'm a bit disappointed with myself in that, but I could probably take a harvest of what is there, even though it's a bit limp looking, and use it in something. So I said I'd do a quick tour as well, and hopefully it doesn't make this video too long, of what I have going on up in the field. Now, it's a case of the good, the bad and the ugly. So first bed here is my sweet corn. It's not ripe yet. I'm debating as to whether I'm going to get anything from it at all. Again, the cooler weather in July and August didn't help, but the silks are even gone off the top of this, so I don't know if something's eaten them or what the story is. I did pull one apart here to get a look at it, but it wasn't mature. Where do I see? Can I get it opened up again? Yeah, you can see in there actually there's earwigs. There's an awful lot of earwigs around this year. You can see in there the kernels aren't developed properly at all. So probably going to have to call this a loss this year. Certainly looking that way anyway. But I'm not giving up on it yet. This last week of hot weather might have brought it on a wee bit with a bit of luck. Even if I only got 10 ears of corn, I'd be happy enough, because there's nothing like the corn that you can grow yourself. But I'm hoping next year I will have more space in the polytunnel to dedicate and grow it indoors. At least I'll be guaranteed it when I grow it indoors. But up until now I've had success growing outdoors, but we have had very warm summers this last certainly the last 4 years were nice and hot. But of course this year just let me down a bag full. So if I have more indoor growing space, I can dedicate the space indoors to growing them then, and be guaranteed a harvest. Next bed is strawberries and weeds, woeful looking, and I didn't get a great harvest from these either, and I think it was the really hot spell in June that didn't help these. And I did supplemental water them a wee bit, but it's hard enough to water out here, so I don't do it as often as I should in dry spells. And like, I haven't watered it now in this dry spell either, which has been, like I said, almost a week. But they got a deluge of rain last night, so they're not needed now. This was my rhubarb bed, and again my rhubarb didn't do well this year. It got taken over by weeds as well, which hasn't helped. So I'm rethinking this bed for next year as well. Actually, all these, what I was calling perennial beds, I'm strongly thinking of redoing something with them. The next bed was artichokes. This bed, I'm definitely getting rid of these artichokes. I just don't use the artichokes. They're lovely. I have tasted them, I'd say, about twice, and they're lovely, but it's a wasted space to be dedicating a whole bed to them. And especially such a hard to manage bed, like it's just full of weeds again, like the last one. And even these two, covered in Mypex. This is where my onions and garlic were. They're covered in Mypex, but of course there are the little holes where the onions and garlic were, and now they're full of weeds. So we do have to come through and take out those weeds, and I'll have to either cover it with a solid piece of plastic or Mypex, or replant it with something, which would make more sense. But at this stage in the growing season, the choice of what I can plant outside now is diminishing quickly, and like, I'm having trouble trying to fill the beds in the raised beds in front of the greenhouse, so these beds surely won't be filled. Now this is my cut flower bed. The sun's out now, so it's probably going to hamper the footage, but this is Statice. Absolutely gorgeous flower, and what I like about this flower is that it does really well as a dried flower, and it feels really dry even now as it is, and that's it pretty much in full bloom. Now you can see the pollinators obviously love it. So if nothing else, it's good to grow it for them. There's the sun gone in, you might get a better view of it now. So yeah, I'd heard about this plant watching Garden Answer, of course, and was very excited to have a flower that would last all year round. So that is the plan. It will dry out completely on the plant. I will cut it probably in about mid to late October, and it'll just continue to dry out but hold its colour, which is the important thing. So I'm hoping to have nice pink and purple and white colour all throughout the winter. So that'll be exciting if it works, but I have no reason to doubt it. This next plant was related to the carrot family. It was called chocolate lace flower, but I don't see much chocolate about it, to be honest. I had expected the foliage to be a dark red wine colour, but it's come out green, so I don't know if it will change as the season progresses or what the story is. First time growing it, and it looks very like a carrot, definitely. You see the foliage on it. If you see it up closer, it definitely looks like a carrot, and if you've ever let a carrot go to seed, that's what the carrot flowers look like. So a little bit disappointed, not sure if the seed was wrong or if I'm just not patient enough and I just have to wait another wee while for it to develop. Now these are all grown through Mypex, but it doesn't keep the weeds totally at bay, of course. This is a nice crop of Dianthus. Now it hasn't bloomed yet, but I'm still hopeful. I have lots of bloom heads on it, so hopefully we'll get a harvest from that yet. And these varieties, Chabot La France varieties, and that's a baby pink colour. I think they were all Chabot variety, which is a nice big double bloom on them apparently. Next was stalks. I have harvested some of these stalks. Some of them didn't do really well. They were very puny, and I think it was the variety, whereas some of them were absolutely gorgeous. Much like this one, except taller. That one's just not developing properly, I don't think. So yeah, I have some of them in a vase in the sitting room, and they're just scenting the whole ground floor of the house. It's absolutely gorgeous. The next plant was, well, there were more plants in here, but they're died off. So I was very excited about this type of Scabiosa. Well, I can tell you, I was never as disappointed. Now, they've lovely seed heads on them, but I was expecting these to be much, much bigger. They're really very dainty when you look up close at them. Like, just to put my hand on them for reference. So certainly not as big of a flower head as I was expecting, but that's what the name of the game is. I never really grew a cut flower garden before, so it will be trial and error for me, probably for a few years till I get to know what I like, get to know how the plants grow, how well they do here, being pretty much stuck in the ground and abandoned, and at the end of the day, if that's what I want growing, it'll take some experimenting to find what suits the level of work I'm willing to put into it. So the next one was Love Lies Bleeding. Oh gosh, I can't remember the proper name. Amaranth. Is it? Yeah, Amaranth. And again, it grew lovely, and they're looking lovely in some flower arrangements that I've been making. So again, these are probably best hanging out the front of your vase to add some interest. And I can feel seeds falling off, so I'll probably be looking at amaranth now for years to come if they survive. I did also grow some celosia, which I had expected to grow taller. And it is nice, definitely. But I think I probably could have done something different. Maybe if I'd pinched them out or something, they may have bushed out more and grown a bit taller. Now, and again, I want to say all of these flowers were planted out late. I mean, it was probably July when I planted them out. So there's that to take into consideration as well. But I have some gorgeous sunflowers. And here's my first yellow one to break out. I was looking at this yesterday and it hadn't just come out yet. But look at that. It's a beaut. There's something very happy about sunflowers. I just love looking at sunflowers. There's nice, I think this is like a Pro Cut Red or something. I'm not just fully sure of the variety. But look at that. I'm hoping you can see that better properly in the sun. I see birdies have obviously been eating at the seeds already, which is good. I did cut some of these. I have some of them in on my kitchen table, but the rest can be enjoyed by the birds and the bees and all the pollinators. See more red ones there. I have a nice white one as well. I'm wondering, did I cut them all? I don't think I did. There's bound to be another white one somewhere. No, there mustn't be. I thought I had another. Oh yeah, I did see it now. There we are. So impressed with my sunflowers, and a lot of the blooms still to come out yet. And again, only for this spell of hot weather the last week or so, I probably wouldn't have got these out at all. These wouldn't have bloomed, I don't think. They'd have probably rotted sooner than bloom. So then moving on, I have an empty bed there, never got planted. I had planned to put some brassicas in there, but then the brassicas, the plants, the seedlings, just, they got too stressed. And then I just figured it was too warm to be growing any more on. And hopefully I'll get over winter cabbages now anyway. The next one was squash. Again, they were late being planted. So they didn't really get to develop. They have developed lots of foliage. You can see them sprawled all over the place there. This one here is courgette or zucchini. You can see it's producing, and it has only started to produce in the last week or so. I was actually wondering that I wasn't going to get any courgettes this year, which would be definitely an unusual occurrence. Usually I'm trying to give them away, but this year I can say so far this year I've not had enough. And I did plant a yellow one next to it and it died off completely, so I will only have green. However, I'm sure I'll have lots of gardening friends who'll be happy to part with a few courgettes. Another empty bed. I can't remember what I had planned for this one, but I did have something planned. Probably broccoli. Yeah, I think I have 3 empty beds here. And I think it was cabbage, broccoli and cauliflower was the plan. Didn't quite work out. The next one was onions. Had a bit of a mixed bag with my onions in this bed this year. So I'd say up to about there was planted first. They're seemingly doing well enough. Now I'm not just 100% sure what the bulbs are doing underneath, but foliage wise they look fairly healthy. No, they're not really swelling up that well, but I'm sure I'll get some sort of an onion off them. The ones up further then were planted out in, I think it was the first week of July. No, it could have been the last week of June. And we proceeded to have, I think we had another week of high temperatures and they just all died off. But then when the rain started, they eventually came back to life. So I'd say really they're only growing from mid to late July. Since they were grown from seed, I would strongly consider, depending on how they develop, but I'd strongly consider leaving them in the bed over winter and letting them grow on again next spring. I'm contemplating it. It'll be an experiment if nothing else. We'll see how it goes. So that's the third empty bed next. and then that's the next 4 rows are potatoes. So I've already harvested the most of this row. So the majority of this row was my early Charlottes, great crop of Charlottes, but some rotting this year. I think the wet weather for July and August didn't help those. And again, these were late going in as well. It was the end of May when all these potatoes were planted. So it was August before they were ready. But again, a lot of rotten potatoes, definitely due to, I suppose, a combination of the heat and wet. So not sure what to expect for the rest. I have, I think that's Sarp O'Meara just on the very end of this row. Didn't have a lot of that crop, if I recall correctly. And I'm seeing, I did have labels on the rest of these. I'm seeing they've disappeared. I can't remember. There's 2 more varieties anyway in this ridge here. So that you can see the foliage is all dying off now, so they're all ready to be harvested. So that will be the work for the next few weeks. We'll tackle into this and get them all harvested and get lots of little helpers out with me as well. They mightn't be so willing, but we'll try and coax them out. I know these last 2 ridges were all Carolus, which is an organic variety that I have grown before and I really like. So that's the reality of the end of season garden. I've said it before, I start out with great intention, and usually by June, July the enthusiasm starts to wane, but the harvest starts to come in then. So while some things haven't been very successful, I have still had quite a big harvest from the garden. And I always think when I have the basics, I'm happy to have just the basics. So plenty of onions, carrots, potatoes, leeks. I still have broccoli and cauliflower in the freezer from my spring crop. And I'll have more growing now in the polytunnel as well very shortly. So I also have had loads of tomatoes grown up in the polytunnel, and of course my eaten tomatoes here. I've made loads of jars of tomato soup and pasta sauce as well. I've made loads of that, hoping to make still another batch of pasta sauce. That'll see me all through the winter, and I still have loads of just plain chopped tomatoes from last year. Oh, and I made a big batch of ketchup as well. So yeah, I've had plenty of tomato products made this year. So overall, quite a good harvest, and all the extra little bits are a bonus if you get them. Like these squash that I'll be getting now. I'll be hopefully getting them cured next month. I'd imagine it'll be before they're cured. And I'll have them to store and eat over winter as well. Some of them are for decor, definitely. There's some kind of warty ones that will be used for decor. Swede, of course, another basic plant vegetable that will be very useful over winter. What else have I? Yeah, my parsnips and celery leaf, and my red cabbage. Yeah, so not a bad harvest at all. And plenty of basil has been harvested as well. I made a batch of pesto and just used it fresh. Haven't got any basil for the freezer yet, but I'm hoping. I still have some basil. I actually forgot to show you, there is basil growing in front of my cucumbers there in the greenhouse. So I'll take another harvest from that and get all the leaves picked off and washed and spun dry and into the freezer. I find it's the easiest way to store basil for using over the winter, especially for all these tomato products that I'm going to be using as well. So yeah, overall I'm generally happy with my harvest, considering the small amount of work that I've only put into it in the last while. Other things take priority in the summer months. Of course, the kids are off school. I still have to work, and you know, household chores, all that stuff has to be done. All the exciting stuff all has to be done. So the garden does go on a back burner for a while once I get it all planted. But still, I can't say that I haven't got enough from it either. So I hope you enjoyed this, what I'm hoping is a quick update. We'll see when it's edited how quick it is. Hit the thumbs up button down below if you enjoyed what you've seen, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I've a load of new followers over on Instagram. If you're not following me on Instagram yet, maybe you'd follow me over there too. I probably do a bit more updating on Instagram, but it can be hit and miss as well. I'm not going to lie. I take a Fagaria posting on Instagram and then forget it exists for maybe a week or so. But I do post more regularly on Instagram than I do here. And if you are coming over here from Instagram, you're very welcome. I hope you stick around. It's a bit sporadic posting at the minute, but I hope to get back to more regular content in the next week or so. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next video. Bye bye.